Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, distinguished guests, my name is Richard Ovenden. I'm Bodley's Librarian and the Helen Hamlyn Director of University Libraries and Head of Gardens, Libraries and Museums here at the University of Oxford. And it's my pleasure to welcome you to Oxford to this event, part of a series of events to celebrate the great national poet of Georgia, Shota Rustaveli. It's important that the Bodleian is part of these wonderful celebrations because of our long-standing interest in, love of and commitment to the literature, history and culture of Georgia. That long-standing interest was developed by two extraordinary people, Oliver and Marjorie Wardrop. They were involved in Georgian affairs from the late 19th and in particular in the early 20th centuries when Oliver Wardrop was a diplomat working for the British government in Georgia. He fell in love with the country and communicated that love back to his sister Marjorie, who eventually came and travelled to Georgia to be with him. She had already learned the Georgian language and had begun to translate some of the texts that Oliver Wardrop had been bringing back to Britain in his own personal collection of manuscripts and rare books. One of those, of course, was Rustaveli's great epic poem, and she began to translate it into English before she'd actually visited Georgia. When she came to Georgia, her love of the country and the people and the culture only blossomed, and she was able to join her brother in continuing to collect manuscripts and rare books, newspapers, all kinds of materials relating to Georgian history and culture. I think of particular importance, and part of the collection that moves me greatly is Oliver Wardrop's involvement in the movement for Georgian independence in the period immediately after the Russian Revolution. We have the draft of the Declaration of Georgian Independence from 1918, and we are proud that Oliver, as High Commissioner in 1920, was responsible for Britain acknowledging Georgian independence. What then followed during the Soviet Empire meant that we could not continue to collect in the level that we had before. But now, since 1989, our Georgian collection has become increasingly important. Over the years, it's been a huge pleasure for us in the Bodleian to welcome successive Georgian ambassadors, political and diplomatic leaders from Georgia itself, as well as scholars and members of the public who've come to Oxford to enjoy, to study and to learn from the fantastic collections that Oliver and Marjorie Wardrop gave us and that we've been able to continue to build since then. We value the connections that we have to institutions of higher learning, libraries, archives and other cultural bodies in Georgia, and we look forward to continue to work with them to help us build our contemporary collections of Georgian life and culture, to help us to expose the collections that we have here to everyone using the power of the internet so that the riches that we have can be shared in Georgia and indeed to everyone interested in Georgia across the world. I look forward to hearing all of the great things about it and to welcoming many of you back to the Bodleian to help us to continue to care for, to build and to celebrate the collections that Oliver and Marjorie Wardrop began all those years ago and to continue the strong academic and cultural connections that we have to Georgia long into the future. Thank you.